Today on Wealth Wednesday, we talk about one of the risks people don't always consider when thinking about retirement, and that is the risk of outliving your assets. Today is part 4 in the keys for successful retirement, and this is planning for a 30-year retirement. Hello, welcome back to Wealth Wednesday. We are the Ohio Valley's financial planning firm, and if you would like to learn more about us, check out our YouTube channel. That's at Commonwealth Financial. Be sure to like and subscribe, and you can also find more about us on the web at cfswb.com. As financial planners, we deal with a lot of unknowable factors. We don't know what investment returns will be or what the rate of inflation will be. But one of the most important elements we don't know is how long we will live. Consider this. A 65-year-old male has a life expectancy of 83 and a half years. He has a 75% chance to live to age 80 and a 50% chance to live to age 85. A 65-year-old woman has a life expectancy of 85. She has a 50% chance of living to age 90. According to the Journal of Financial Planning, 60% of retirees underestimate their life expectancy by at least 5 years. And according to the Employee Benefits Research Institute, more than 40% of retirees are at risk of outliving their savings. I'd like to bring back Nikki Ludy, a financial planner in Woodsfield, Ohio. Nikki, what are some of the things that we can do to address this?
Well, Neil, I think the first thing is your timing of retirement. The earlier you decide to retire, obviously there are many more factors that are unknown or that we're really just guessing at, and longevity is one of them. It's really hard to project. I get a lot of clients that come in here and say, oh, I'm not going to live past 80, so I don't care if I run out of money. But I don't want to be meeting with them at 85 when they are out of money. So that's one of the things that is really hard to address. So the earlier you retire, you put kind of more unknowns and more risk in your scenario. The later you retire, obviously, we can plan for more things, have that additional savings. And, potentially delaying Social Security or your pension benefits is another way. Anytime you take these benefits early, you're taking some sort of reduction. So the more that we can create certainty in your financial plan, the more realistic and the better outcomes we're going to have. Because another thing is uncertain expenses. When we're saying that we don't know if your longevity and retirement will be a 10-year time span or 30-year time span, expenses are going to change wildly during that time period. Also, managing the income streams. I just mentioned about Social Security benefits and pension benefits. Again, the earlier you take those are going to be reduced. But also how long you're going to have to draw from your savings, whether it be IRA accounts, non-qualified accounts. As you draw from those on a longer scale, depending on if there are market fluctuations, that can really dramatically change someone's plan. So being flexible with these scenarios is really the key. And then also how you invest, because again, we don't know what the market's going to do 5 years from now. Heck, we don't know what it's going to do 6 months from now. So we're building in a lot of predictions and, having you save as much as possible. I always tell clients that I've never had someone come to me and say, hey, I've oversaved. What do I do? It's always, I've undersaved. Now what do I do? So I'd much rather plan for a scenario when you undersave. And I think people, quite honestly, they underestimate how much they need to be saving. And a lot of this can take years to adjust. So if you're under saving, you can't fix that usually in a year or two. That really has to be done over time. So, and then once you're in retirement, don't ignore your growth rates. You still need that money to grow. So some people think, well, once I get to retirement, I have to be super conservative, go to a savings account or a CD so that I have that certainty. But the honest truth is there's very little growth in those investment vehicles. So you need it to continue to grow with inflation, know your spending limits, and, again, projecting out what inflation is going to be, because you have to be realistic on how much your expenses are going to grow. Even if you're not spending a lot, we know that those expenses are still naturally going to grow with inflation.
Yeah, and this is why things like the 4% rule exist and why planners look to age 90 or later when we're building out these plans. I don't think I've ever built a financial plan that only stopped at age 80. And like you said, people can be pessimistic about it, but again, that's not the fun conversation to have when they're 82 years old and they've overspent and blown it all. It's a very difficult shift in their reality to go from having other resources to just Social Security or just Social Security and a pension. That is not a fun time to have that conversation when people are running out of money. Nikki, when people retire, they are often more active early because their health and mind allows them to be. How do you factor something like this into your clients' plans?
Right. So, I mean, there is some research on this that spending actually decreases as you get older, mainly because you do fewer things. Your health, if it's declining, maybe you're just not physically able to get out and do those. So your spending habits can change in retirement. You know, early on, you might spend more on travel and leisure type things, whereas those might decline in the later years. But then your healthcare costs, quite honestly, could pick up, or there could be, discussions about long-term care if that's needed. So, spending more early is reasonable in that, there seems to be trends around that. But that, again, still needs to be within reason. You can't be, buying all the things early, assuming that you're going to have, I would say, an early demise, because, again, your healthcare costs could spike later on. So it's really understanding where your spending fits. That's probably the number one topic that comes up in these discussions is, how much do people spend? And a lot of people don't understand how much they're spending, let alone once they get into retirement and that all looks different. Also, this is kind of why we do, doctors take the blood work early on to see, what risk factors there might be. As planners, we're kind of doing the same thing. When we look at people's financial situations, we're trying to understand where these numbers come from. And so, again, I go back to the expenses. People won't always ask the question, how much do I need to retire? And I always, flip it back to them. How much are you spending? That is honestly where it all starts. If you don't know where you're spending, we don't know how much you need to retire on. So understanding, where is everything going from your paychecks? We as planners know that when we look at a financial situation and there's not a lot of savings built in, and you've been working for 30 years, we know that that's all being spent. And we know that we're probably not going to change your spending habits, honestly, in one or two conversations. It has to happen over time in building in enough savings so that you can draw from these plans later on to improve your financial health, so that it may last 10 years in retirement. It may need to last 30 years in retirement.
So it's a cash flow problem, always has been, always will be. And if you're sitting here watching this today and you're looking and you're probably going to retire in 3 years, Nikki, what are some things that you really should be doing now to prepare for that eventuality when you do step away from the workforce?
Yeah, I think the first thing is get a handle on your spending. But I don't say that in, everyone is overspending, but people just don't really know. It's so hard, it's so easy for us to swipe that debit card and spend money. And I feel like people are really not tracking what is going out the door total dollar wise for the year. And then also getting a handle on what are you saving? What are the hard numbers? Are you consistently saving in a retirement plan, in an IRA, in a savings account? How much is going towards, that nest egg down the road? Because people do underestimate those numbers. And then once we know what you have in a savings account or in retirement, understanding these withdrawal rates, so we can understand how it impacts your financial risk, how much risk to take, how much it needs to grow. This isn't a scenario where I think of a lot of people that going into retirement, they think it's all about the investments and how much it's going to grow. But the reality is you have to have the savings to start with for it to grow within reason. And then understanding whether delaying retirement makes sense. If the numbers don't work, then you have to have a way to offset that. And sometimes working a few more years is really the only way that you're going to make the numbers work, so that those pensions and Social Security benefits can grow a few more years, because that can impact the longevity of the plan. And And then again, just all of the investment strategies. What growth rates do you need, and are they realistic, to understand your investment strategies?
Yeah, and sometimes the delay that's required is only a year or two. It's not like you have to wait from retiring at 63 to all the way to 70. Sometimes if you can just get to 65 or 66, it can make a huge difference in how the numbers all work. And
Right.
that's something that I think people, they get target locked on a date, and they think, oh, I'm going at this date. But if they can stick it out for 12 more months, sometimes that's the difference between success and failure in a lot of ways. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate that. If you like this video, hit that like button. Again, subscribe so you don't miss our future updates of this. We've got a few more episodes planned. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you, including reaching out to Nikki or myself, visit cfswv.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.